Welcome to This Explainer, everyone. So today we're diving into what I can only describe as an absolutely unprecedented legal twist in one of the most notorious criminal cases of this entire decade, the 2022 Idaho student murders. We really thought this case was closed. We thought the book was firmly shut. But a massive new development has thrown literally everything we thought we knew about the legal resolution right back into question. Which brings us to the massive question at the center of all this. Can a confessed killer actually just take it back? I mean, how does a guy who knowingly accepted consecutive life sentences with zero chance of parole suddenly turn around and try to withdraw his guilty plea? Well, we're going to look at exactly that. We'll walk through the facts of the case, the timeline of the horrific crime, the incredibly methodical police work that led to an arrest, and ultimately this shocking new legal maneuver. All right, Section 1, the shocking reversal. To understand where we're at right now, we really need to look at how this whole reversal kicked off. Basically, in July of 2026, which is exactly 1 year after his sentencing, by the way, Bryan Kohberger suddenly files a handwritten petition to completely reverse his guilty plea. And get this, the timing is wild. He filed it just days before a new Netflix documentary, The Idaho Murders, College Nightmare, dropped. Now, legally speaking, pulling back a plea after you've already been sentenced, it's incredibly difficult. You can't just change your mind because you decided prison isn't for you. To actually succeed, you have to prove a really serious, fundamental legal defect in how that original plea went down. Moving on to Section 2, the night of the murders. Okay, so to fully grasp the weight of what he's trying to undo here, we kind of have to flash back and set the scene of the original crime. Picture this. It's the rural college town of Moscow, Idaho. Early morning, November 13th, 2022. The four victims, Ethan Chapin, Santa Kernadal, Madison Mogan, and Keely Bean Colvis, they're all back at their off-campus rental house by about 1:56 a.m. Around 4 a.m., Santa gets a DoorDash delivery. Seems like a totally normal night, right? But literally minutes later, everything changes. At 4:17 a.m., a nearby security camera picks up the sound of whimpering, a loud thud, and a dog barking. Detectives piece together that in this tiny window between 4 and 4:25 a.m., the killers systematically move through the second and third floors, fatally stabbing these four innocent university students. And incredibly, the 911 call for an unconscious person wasn't actually made until almost noon the next day, at 11:55 a.m. There is one detail from that timeline that really captures the sheer terror of that night. One of the surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen, who was down on the second floor, actually opened her bedroom door after hearing some noises, and she sees a figure dressed in all black with a mask covering his mouth and nose, walking right toward her. He walks right past her and leaves through a sliding glass door. Mortensen later told authorities she was stuck in a frozen shock phase and just locked herself in her room. It is just an absolutely chilling detail that shows you the total nightmare these students woke up to. Which brings us to Section 3, the investigation and arrest. Right after the murders, this massive task force was formed. We're talking almost 130 law enforcement officers, from local cops all the way up to the FBI. The killer clearly wanted to command the scene, prove he was smarter than the system. But, well, he wasn't. The detective work here was like a brilliant domino effect. Step 1. Investigators spot a white Hyundai Elantra circling the neighborhood right around the time of the murders. Step 2. They track cell tower pings. These show a phone belonging to Bryan Kohberger, who happened to be a 28-year-old criminology PhD student at nearby Washington State University, traveling near the scene and then mysteriously turning off during the exact window of the killings. Then, Step 3, the real smoking gun. They find a tan leather knife sheath left on Madison Mogan's bed. The FBI used genetic genealogy on the touch DNA left on that sheath, and boom, it leads them right to Kohberger's family and ultimately, to him. So they track him all the way across the country to his parents' house in Pennsylvania. And the way they finally made the arrest is just bizarre. It was December 30, 2022. The SWAT team does this wee hours blitz arrest. According to the sources, they caught him in the middle of the night, standing in the kitchen in a shirt and shorts, wearing surgical examination gloves, and meticulously bagging up his garbage into separate Ziploc baggies. I mean, wow. It really shows a suspect going to extreme lengths to make sure his DNA wasn't left behind anywhere. All right, next up, the guilty plea. Fast forward through years of pretrial motions, grand juries, and just a massive media circus, we land in the summer of 2025. This was when the whole legal proceeding seemingly came to a definitive end. Facing a trial where prosecutors were absolutely seeking the death penalty, Brian Koberger actually entered a plea of guilty to all charges. He admitted, right there on the record, to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He openly stated he acted willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation. And this is absolutely crucial. To avoid capital punishment, he explicitly waived his right to any future appeals, basically guaranteeing he'd spend the rest of his life in the Idaho Maximum Security Institution.
4. That number represents the immense weight of the sentence handed down by Judge Stephen Hippler on July 23, 2025. 4 consecutive life sentences, 0 possibility of parole, plus another 10 years tacked on for the burglary charge. It was a sentence completely designed to make sure he would never, ever walk free again.
Which leads us into our final section, fight for a retrial. So now we fast forward back to today, July 2026. He's been serving those consecutive life sentences for exactly a year. And Koberger suddenly drops these explosive allegations in a collateral appeal to demand a retrial. He's claiming he was coerced through total disinformation. He actually alleges his own defense attorneys told them these fabricated, terrifying stories about touring an 8-by-8-foot death row cell just to scare him into pleading guilty. He says they totally lied about what his living conditions would be like on a standard life sentence, and that they even made these threats right in front of his family to dial up the pressure. But get this, maybe the biggest claim is that his defense team supposedly withheld exculpatory evidence. That means evidence that could have proven his innocence. Specifically, he cites clumps of unknown hair that were allegedly found in victim Ethan Chapin's hands during the time of plea negotiations. You've really got to look at the stark contrast here. Back in 2025, Koberger stood in court, acknowledged his guilt on the record, and signed public documents saying he was pleading guilty because, well, he was actually guilty. But now, in this 2026 petition, he's totally flipping the script. He's claiming that actual guilt had nothing to do with it. He says he was led to believe death row was basically inevitable, and that his lawyers actually advised him to lie just to secure a legal victory and stay alive. Because of these wild claims of ineffective counsel and coercion, a brand new legal battle has officially kicked off. The judge actually granted Koberger a new public defender to handle this appeal. But let's be totally clear here. This is going to be an insanely steep uphill battle for him. Overturning a guilty plea after you've been sentenced, especially when you explicitly waived your right to appeal, means you have to definitively prove there was a severe constitutional defect in that original process. We're talking a massive violation of fundamental legal rights. So, I want to leave you with this final lingering thought. What does this absolutely unprecedented reversal attempt actually mean for the finality of this case? Just when the families and the entire community finally thought this dark legal chapter was closed for good, the justice system is being tested all over again. It's an incredibly complex saga, and we are absolutely going to be monitoring it closely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep an eye out for updates, and I'll catch you in the next one.